rare situation is allowing you to buy some ETF stocks for 50% off. Learn more at crushthestreet.com/profit2017.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I'm Kenneth Amaduri. We got an interesting conversation today. We're going to be talking about our finances, making good decisions with our housing situations, certainly where we live, where we decide to live, how we buy our house now is one of the biggest expenses that we will ever deal with. And it's very important to make that decision. Even before thinking about investing, that is a huge investment when you consider what you're going to do with your housing situation. So I have on the line today Aaron Hendon. He's a Seattle realtor, real estate investor, author, educator, and speaker. Managing partner of Christine and Company, a Seattle Magazine awarded 5-star real estate agent, winning team for the past 5 years, and individual rising star in Seattle real estate winner this year. So he's an author. He's got a second book being released shortly here, Real Estate Blind Spots, and I think that's what we're going to talk about today. And he's got another book which you can download for free, Don't Get Fooled Again, an insider's guide to the 7 questions you must ask to avoid hiring the wrong real estate agent. And then in quotations, it says again. So Aaron, thanks for coming on the line with me today.
Ken, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Aaron, let's start by just getting your thoughts on real estate and why do you love it and what do you do? Why do you do what you do?
Well, I do what I do because it's an opportunity to be with people and guide them through the most expensive transaction of their life. And, I think it's important to get that distinction made. It's not one of the, it's the. So it doesn't matter where you are on the scale. Buying your home is the most expensive thing you own. And I love being with people through that process. It's emotional. It's fraught with stress and frustration, and to be able to guide people through and be a valued consultant for them in an event that is singular in its impact is important and moving to me. That people would trust me with that is really moving to me.
Okay. So let's start from the aspect. I want to talk about investment properties too, but let's talk about that most important expense that people will face in their life. First of all, is there a threshold that you would suggest people waiting for them to cross over before they get into even thinking about buying a home? And where would they go from there? Where would they start in terms of looking?
When you say threshold, tell me what you mean.
What sort of financial position should someone be in before they should consider buying a house?
Good. Well, I think you want to be able to get to a place where you're, well, first of all, they're living somewhere, right? I mean, they could be living for free in a parent's house or parent's basement, which more and more people are doing. And I'm not disparaging that. That's a great way to save up money if that's available to you. And people are paying rent. If they're not doing that, they're paying rent somewhere. So at some level, it's real estate, like we were talking about earlier, pre-show, is hyper-local and very specific to the exact scenario that you're dealing with. So I think you want to get to a place where, you're not going to be spending more than something about a third of your monthly income on mortgage, no more than that for sure. And even less than that, if you can get away with it, is even a better deal, because a house really is a money pit in every sense. I know that's not a very marketable phrase for a realtor to be saying, but there's an endless number of things, and an endless number of needs a house has. Endless number of ways a house will find to use your money. Okay, so spending less than a third is wise. So if you're living somewhere where you can get a mortgage and the payment would be less than a third of your monthly income, you should consider buying.
Okay. All right. So let's start with the buyer. If I was a buyer looking around for a house, what are some of the things that you would recommend? Pitfalls or blind spots when you go around looking for a house that would be worth our people knowing?
Well, so there's a bunch, and you'll have to cut me off if I just ramble, okay? I would start with with your question. All right, Ken, I think your question was brilliant, and I don't think people start there often enough, and that is with a lender. Because people don't wake up in the morning and go, wow, I can't wait to get a loan. Except that's really you need to start, and you need to start with a lender early in the process. I talk to people all the time that want to start with the house. They want to start hunting for the house, and that's silly. It's useless because you don't know how much you can afford. You don't know what's going on with your credit. You don't know what's going on with your lendability. And starting with a reputable lender would be a place to go, and have them pre-approve you for a loan. Go through the whole process. Don't get pre-qualified. Get pre-approved. Have them inspect your credit. Have them, look at your W-2s or your tax returns. Have them really inspect everything so you know exactly what you have to spend on a loan, and then decide, is that amount that I'm qualified for consistent with what I'd like to spend every month, or is it more or less? And then you start going from there, because if you started that process a year out from buying, and there was a hiccup on your credit report, or there was something to deal with about a bank statement, you'd have a year to get it worked out. If you wait and you find a house and then you go get pre-approved, you're screwed. So start early, start with a lender. Okay, that's one major thing I don't see enough people doing. And then as long as we're on the lender rant, I would start with a small mortgage lender, someone who works in your market, who is associated with an in-house lender, someone local, not some Quicken Loans Rocket Mortgage thing, not some big bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, none of those people, okay? They're not going to be reliable when it comes time to closing, and when it comes time to dealing with any of the particles that need to get dealt with as you get towards closing. Having a big bank or one of the internet operators is never going to be as efficient as using a small local lender who requires your referral to do business. Find vendors that require your referral to do business, and you will find more reliable vendors.
That's a good advice.
Yeah, and people go into their bank and they're like, well, I shop at Wells Fargo and there's that friendly person behind the desk, so I'll just sit there next time I go. And that's, that literally is one of the blind spots in my new book. That's just availability. It's a mental shortcut people take, that they use the thing that's at the top of their mind. The first thing they think of gets more weight and more importance, so they stop thinking about it. So going into a bank, seeing the guy behind the desk, thinking because they're friendly and Wells Fargo advertises great rates, they're as good as anybody, that's not true. You don't want to do that. You actually want to shop around for a small local lender.
Okay. Well, let's also talk about, let's say, the home process. Is there things that people can save money doing when looking for a home? And I know we've kind of, even in the pre-interview, a lot of this is case-by-case basis, but general tips to approach this and capture the most value on a buyer perspective when looking for a home.
Yeah, there's a couple things that people can do, the general rules of thumb, okay, for sure. And I do think, Kenneth, what you said is accurate, that it is a case-by-case basis, and that people should be wary of, applying general rules to every case, because it's a way of stopping us from thinking it through. Like, oh, it's always better to buy than rent. No, it's not true. It's not always better to buy than rent. Nothing's always true, okay? But general rules of thumb that might be useful are, in terms of saving money, don't get sucked into reality TV shows. Because someone takes a home from trash to golden, from being foreclosed to Architectural Digest in 30 minutes in Flip This House or whatever, doesn't mean you can do it. A lot of people think, where there are bargains are in foreclosures or in short sales or in fixer-uppers. And that's not true. I mean, it might be true. There might be a bargain there, But as a general rule, you want to really assess your availability to fix things. You know, do you work full time? Is that really something that you want to take on? Are you capable of taking that on yourself, or is that just something you saw some guy on TV do? So I don't know that there really are there's not automatically value in a fixer-upper. So that's one thing to watch for, like the general rule of thumb, watch out for thinking about, oh yeah, the value's in the more rundown house. Because like I said, a house is a money pit, even a new house is a money pit. An old house is a deeper pit. And then the other thing I think buyers could do is they can make sure they get a realtor that negotiates well. You know, get someone who has a track record of buying houses for under asking price in your market. And it's something I beat to death in my books and in my speaking with people. And I don't think people hear me, so I have to keep saying it. But you really do need to interview your agent the way you would interview, even if you interview them the way you'd interview any other employee, you'd be heads and shoulders above what people normally do, okay? Because mostly people hire the first agent they think of, and they don't interview them. But I think if you asked your agent to show you their last 12 months of sales, asking price, sold price, days on market, that information would be available to you, and you could see who has been negotiating under asking price. That's what you want in a realtor that you're buying with, right? You want to find someone who negotiates under asking price. You should find out. You should ask them for that. Nobody's ever asked me for that. I think that's crazy.
You know, and the fact is, you know, exposing, let's say, the real estate side, whether or not the house is sold or bought for $445 or $450 or $460, it doesn't make that much of a difference for the real estate commission, but it's a big deal for the buyer, right? The buyer and the seller.
Totally. It's a huge deal for the buyer and seller, which is another thing that I think people aren't. So that what you just said is 100% accurate, right? That a $10,000 savings is not a big deal to the realtor, because they're going to get 3%. They're going to get probably less than 3% of that $10,000 savings either way, because no realtor puts all 3% of their commission. If they get 3% commission, no realtor puts all that in their pocket. Every realtor is splitting that 60 ways to Sunday, okay? So it's even less of a big deal to the realtor. And it's why in particular, I think it's really interesting that when you ask a realtor for, you know, how's business, or tell me about your business, or tell me how you're, you know, why I should hire you, or tell me your numbers, the numbers they cough up generally are things like the number of deals they've done in a year, like I've done 46 transactions or whatever, right? Or the volume. You know, I just signed $5 million worth of listings this weekend. Okay, that's great news for me. That tells you nothing as the consumer. What's more interesting to you, and what you would want to hear a realtor say to you, is, I have sold homes for 5% over asking price, which compares to the local average of 101%. We've gotten 105%. The local average is 101%. And when we've negotiated for our buyers, we've paid 98% compared to the 101.
Wow.
Those are the numbers you want to hear from your realtor, because those are the numbers about the money in your pocket. Those are the numbers that the realtor has done for their clients. That I signed $6 million worth of listings this weekend was really great news for my wife. Makes no difference to you. That we sell houses at 98, we buy houses at 98% of asking price in a market that's generally going at 101, or that we sell at 105 when the general is 101, that's more important to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's a brilliant question, and that's the question that people don't ask that they must ask, I think.
Aaron, so you brought up TV reality shows, and I recently moved to Austin. And everybody thinks that Texas now is Waco because of Joanna and Chip, and that show. And a great show, and I think people learned a lot about it, but I think it's funny what has happened because everybody thinks that is the Texas dream now because they marketed it so well in that sense. Okay, so really no question on that. I just have a question in terms of being in an environment now, even in Austin here, where prices are very high, affordability is not exactly there the way it was a few years ago. But in terms of longevity, what did people see in the 90s? I'm kind of a young guy. I've been in this now for about 10 years. I'm just about to turn 30 here. And but what were people feeling in the 90s? Were they saying, oh, the prices are unaffordable and I can't see prices going any higher? The 80s, the 70s. What were people always feeling this pressure of real estate being at max unaffordability and then always going higher?
Well, just like probably a couple of ways, it's probably many ways to answer that question. Okay, so one is, although I've got gray, I don't know everything about this. I was a kid in the 70s, okay, in the 80s. So I got that. I know.
I wanted to get for what we're feeling and if there's any sort of precedence for this.
I got it. And you know what? I don't, in the 70s, interest rates were 17%. So you actually can get more house now than you could then. Crazy, right? I mean, at 3.5% or 4% interest, you can afford more house, right? In compensated dollar, in adjusted dollars, you get more house now for the same money, given the interest rates are low. So it's a little bit, deceptive as to what's affordable. At the same time, I'm in Seattle, and it's literally the hottest market in the country. I hear you. The median price has gone in the last 5 years from $535,000 to $735,000. That's so people are, with good reason, freaking out. Okay, so I hear you about that, and I do think from time to time, and in cycles, probably 8 to 10 year cycles. Which is what real estate tends to go in this country is 8 to 10 year cycle. That you do get the peaks where people freak out, and then there's an adjustment. I don't think we're headed toward the collapse of 2007. I don't think that's happening now, but we are 10 years from 2007, so there is an adjustment coming. That's what goes up comes down. That's not a question. If you start questioning that, then you're a dope, really, right? Because what goes up comes down. That's how life works. How far down and when, nobody knows. And if you find people that know, it's funny. Again, this is funny. I was skiing this winter in Colorado. Anyway, we're in the hot tub after skiing, hanging out with the buds, and there's this guy in the hot tub, and we start schmoozing. And he used to work for the Fed. I never hung out with anyone who worked at the Fed, so we're having beers and talking to this guy that worked at the Fed. He was an economist at the Fed. It's like, this is the best thing ever for me, right? I've never talked to anyone like this. And he said the secret to forecasting is if you want to keep your job at the Fed and you want to keep your job as a forecaster, your job must be to forecast frequently, right, and correct quickly. So that's it. That's all that is. So if you're listening to a forecast about the future of money, of the Fed, of finances, of real estate, their job depends on them forecasting all the time and changing their mind as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So
in other words, it's a joke. There's no such thing. You can't forecast. I mean, you could forecast. These people get paid to forecast, but it's got no validity to it. They just have to correct it as soon as they know they're wrong as quickly as possible, and then we call them good. So,
Wall Street, one of the words they use, it's fugazi. It's this Indian, like you're trying to make predictions.
Exactly. So I don't know what's happening in the future. I don't know if we're at the top or not. And I do think people from time to time, every 8 or 10, but really 4 years ago, 6 years ago, no one was thinking we're at the top. The unaffordability is the problem, but they were thinking at that time was the economy was the problem, and I can't afford it, but not because the prices are so high, but because I don't have a freaking job, right? So were some people figuring out, or that's my dog, by the way, Were some people freaking out because of the housing prices then? Yeah, because relative to the fact that you didn't have a job, right? At this point, it looks the way it looks now because Austin is a super hot market and housing prices, it's an inventory issue. It's not an inflation issue. It's an inventory issue. More demand, less supply. It's not a good idea. It's the law of supply and demand.
Aaron, let's talk about selling your home now. A lot of people everyone has to live somewhere. This is a relevant topic for people. For people who want to sell their home, what are ways people can spend 25 cents to get $1, or is it worth it? Again, by case basis, but where are the pitfalls and what are some of the things that people can think about doing?
Yeah, Kenneth, it's a really, really good question. People ask that all the time. And in fact, I don't think people ask it. I think people, and if they asked it, they'd be better off in asking it than just assuming they knew the answer. Because the truth is, I don't know of any improvement you can make to your house where you spend 25 cents and get $1. It's just not there. Okay, there are some improvements where if you spent $1, you get back anywhere between 95 cents and $1.05, like painting, cleaning right before you sell. It's conceivable that there are some other improvements you could do that you might get back $1.10. Maybe something with green, putting in renewable energy source, something with that gave you a lot of rebates to do it. Possibly a repair, but I don't know of anything where you pay $1 and you get $1.25. And people are looking for that all the time.
Maybe mostly in fixers then on the investment side when people are getting these.
Yeah, well, okay, good. On the investment side, you pay for, you're buying way low, but you've got to save that money in the actual doing of the improvement. And the people that generally save that money are people that are set up to be flippers. They're set up to do that. They have their own crew that they pay, so they keep and they know what they're doing when they're buying and selling they know where to find the supplies, the improvement stuff. They're not buying a gallon of paint. They're buying 10 gallons of paint because they're doing it in several houses. They're not buying one house to flip so that all their investment needs to get returned on that one house. They're buying 5 houses and they can cost average over the 5 houses. If this house doesn't sell quite what you wanted it to, out of the 5, you're going to make your 10%. But, like anything, people that are looking to get rich quick, you want to get rich quick, sell something that tells other people they can get rich quick. That's how people get rich quick. But other than that, it's hard work, it's trial and error. And if you're selling your house, the thing to do is, work with find a realtor that sells houses over asking and ask them in your market, what's selling best now? Because in every market, it's going to be a little bit different. A good advisor will tell you what's working there now. But I think overall, looking for a 75% return, if they were there, if there was something you could do to return 75%, there would be a professional already doing it, beating you to it. Unless that's what you do for a living, you're not going to get that 75% return.
Sure.
Okay. Well, then
I hate to be the bearer of bad news like that. I hate to be like that.
If I was looking for a house, are there certain layouts that are selling better than others? Are there things that I can look for to say, hey, this is going to be more liquid down the road? Should I look for something with at least 2 baths, certain size, any sort of general tips for the average person looking for an average size home to say this is going to be a good general tip for the next 10 or 15 years?
No. The short answer is no, there's not. Because look, if you live in an area with a high percentage of young children families, right, you're going to be looking for a different kind of house than if you're living in an area that has a majority of seniors. A young family can do with and probably wants a 2-story, something where the kids can have their own space. Seniors need a rambler, need no barrier to entry in the house. Those are different houses. New York City, New York is going to be a really different market than Austin, than it's going to be Denver, than it's going to be, Missoula, Montana. So there is no national, this is what's selling now that's worthwhile. And I think the hunt for national tips is unnecessary, because really what you could do is find a local realtor or a local expert. Really, your local realtor should be your local expert that can answer that question for you based on what you really are looking for. And if you in Austin are shopping in Memphis, you can't look at what's selling now in Austin to answer that question, because the prices are what they are in Memphis. And I bet neighborhood by neighborhood, they're different in Memphis. So you need to find someone who's an expert in Memphis to be able to tell you what's there now, what would make the difference now. So then the overall tip is find a local expert.
Well, that's good advice right there, Aaron. So let's get just some closing words for this interview, and then if people want to learn more about you, get books, where would they go and what would they find?
Fabulous. Well, I think I've beaten the drum for, finding a local expert, and find them the way you would find any other partner, any other business partner. You would never take on a business partner because you read their website and you thought, oh, that person has a lot of stars next to their name. Or you wouldn't hire a business partner because you saw their signs all over other people's yards. You wouldn't buy a business partner because they were your cousin's best friend's nephew, uncle, or your kid's soccer coach. You would hire a business partner because you actually interviewed 5 different people asking the same sets of questions of those 5 people. And then you pick the ones that you like the best, that answered the most appropriately. That's how you would hire someone. That's the way to hire a realtor. Do it the way you would hire any other position of trust. Interview 5 of them, 3 of them, 2, whatever. Interview people and use the same set of questions, if you wanted those questions, that's available. That's the book. That's actually the first book, and it's free and it's online. And you're welcome to download it at don'tgetfooledagainbook.com. And those are the 7 questions you must ask. And you could add other questions and like that. It also has my contact information in the book. And if people really were interested in the next book, which is Real Estate Blind Spots, which is a much more in-depth look at the same scenario, but it breaks buying into 10 steps and selling into 8 steps, and looks at the blind spots at each step along the way of buying and selling, along with some behavioral economic theory. I'm going to give a copy of the new book when it comes out in the middle of next month, maybe even by the end of this month. To everyone who's on that mailing list. So if you download a copy of Don't Get Fooled Again, I will automatically send you a copy of the bigger book, because I really want to get some feedback before I go live with that. So it'll be a pre-listing kind of promotion that is available to the listeners if they wanted to. Don't Get Fooled Again book.com. Download that book. I will get you a copy of the new book when it comes out.
Good deal. Well, everyone, there we have it. Aaron Hendon. Aaron, thanks for coming on the show with me today. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate your insight in the real estate market.
Kenneth, thanks so much, and thanks for being someone out there on the street, opening people's eyes to what's really possible in finance and their money. Thanks.